Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Nick Sulovich of Subprime Auto Finance News and Buy Here Pay Here reports. In today's webinar, the ultimate playbook to purchasing the right software, we're going to learn more about this topic from Chase Abbott of VinSolutions. But before we get started, I want to go over a few housekeeping items for today's webinar. Please make sure you've dialed in using the phone number provided in your communication email, or you're able to listen via your PC speakers. We are recording today's webinar, and we'll make that recording available to you in the coming days. You'll be in listen-only mode for this webinar, but we will reserve some time after Chase's presentation for a question and answer session. You can submit your questions at any time through the questions box on the GoToWebinar control panel. And if we aren't able to get to your question today, don't worry, because we'll forward it on to Chase and the team at VinSolutions so they can respond back to you directly via email. Lastly, if you have any difficulty during the webinar, just click on the hand icon on the GoToWebinar control panel and to alert a member of our team. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce VinSolutions Senior Director Chase Abbott. Abbott's 15 years of experience in the automotive software industry make him an exceptional guide for dealers who are making critical software decisions. So let's learn more about that ultimate playbook to purchasing the right software with Chase Abbott. Chase, take it away.
Nick, thank you so much for the introduction, and let me start off by saying thank you to everyone that took time out of their busy day to learn a little bit more about this topic. Let me give you just a little bit of background. I'm the Senior Director for VinSolutions, and I'll give you a little bit of history on who I am and why I think I'm fit to speak to this subject today. So I started at VinSolutions, wow, it's been almost about 9 years ago now, when we were just a little bitty startup company. And I've seen many, many phases of the business, from startup to rocket ship sales, to extreme growing pains because of those sales, to ultimately long-term sustainability. So before that, I had spent 6 years in the automotive retail space with the dealer group here in Kansas City, and had worked my way through all the chairs, starting from salesperson and ended up being the GSM. So experience in both sides of that business, from the retail side to the software side, has really given me an understanding that can help anyone with purchasing the right software. So this is something I really have a passion for. Mainly because I believe that there is such a need for this type of information in the automotive industry. So in short, with a few ideas and some hard work and a team of committed individuals, you can choose the right software for your business and for your culture every single time. So with that, we'll get rolling. So the first question, why is purchasing the right software a big decision? Because in today's market, it's one of the most impactful decisions you can make to determine whether or not you're going to be successful at the end of the month, or busy making a list of really good sounding excuses. So our industry has evolved tremendously in the last 20 years, and we can now be certain that software isn't the wave of the future. In fact, it's the wave of the present. So a huge impactful decision that you really need to gain buy-in from all players to make sure that the usage and the ROI potential out of the tool, whatever it may be, is what it should be for your store. So what do we know about software? We know software is expensive. We know it takes time to implement. We also know that it encompasses change. So it takes a lot of people signing off on things to get the usage where you need it to be. It impacts the entire organization. So there's going to have to be a shift in a lot of different departments in order to accommodate whatever we're trying to do. It also, we know for sure, drives efficiency, making sure nothing falls through the cracks, provided that with automation and making sure that we're as efficient of a business as we can be. Interesting fact, 52% of B2B buyers said that the biggest risk of getting a purchase wrong is wasting company money. And it's a tough decision. And how do you know that you make the right one? Why is it a tough decision? Well, for starters, it takes time to research. You have to have the desire to spend the time. It's too important not to do it. Why else is it a tough decision? Because it's too many choices. If anyone was at NADA a few weeks ago like I was, you will know that the amount of choices in the industry today, there are tons of them. And it can get a little bit confusing with so many competitive products out there, all kind of doing the same kind of stuff. So lots and lots of choices definitely makes it tough. One of the other things that's synonymous with our industry is staff turnover. Some dealerships are, let's face it, a revolving door. And there isn't much that will impede the software usage march like turnover. So if you have a good culture and a good staff, this makes it that much easier to go purchase a new piece of software and roll it out or implement it into the store. We also know that cost, it makes it a tough decision. I mean, how much do you spend? Did I get a good deal? What are those things that make that up? Not a priority. We're too busy. They won't use it. And my ultimate favorite is, we didn't need software to sell cars back in my day, right? Which that's the dinosaurs speaking. But we all know, like I said earlier, that it's the wave of the present. So why do we need software? Number one, in my opinion, is compliance. Internet leads, they expect a response. Customers expect data security. Lenders expect accuracy. Results expect to be measured. Dealer principals, they expect profits. None of which in today's market requires a pencil and paper any longer. So software has taken the place of what we all used to know sold cars. The other thing is definitely ROI. Right after compliance, maybe before, is return on investment. And how can we know what success looks like if we have no way to measure our results? How much should we put into this trade? How can we provide a better customer experience? How can we set ourselves apart from our competition? All things that we're looking at when we look at ROI. There's one answer for all of these questions, and that is software. So now we'll go through 4 common software buying mistakes. I do thousands of deals at VinSolutions and thousands of deals in the retail market, and these are some of the biggest mistakes that I see on a daily basis, so I wanted to share them with you today. Mistake number 1, and this is rampant through the industry, not digging deep enough. I often see dealers asking many great questions during presentations, but some are just really guilty of not digging deep enough to really find out if the solution checks all of their boxes, not the boxes the vendor wants you to see. So make sure that you dig deep and you really get in there and have them explain what they're showing you. Mistake number 2, emotional decision making. Simply put, pressure and relationships affect decisions. The one time I went to the ballet when I was dating my wife proved this. I don't think I would have been there without that. So don't let it in this arena. Don't let emotional decisions affect this, okay? The only pressure you should feel is the pressure to make the right decision on your software solution set. You owe it to yourself and you owe it to the dealership. The success barometer is tied to the software pieces in every instance in today's dealership. Mistake number 3, thinking that too customizable is daunting. This one's a little funny to me. In all actuality, the more customizable, the better. Now, I know it can seem busy or seem like there's a lot of settings, but you have to progress through the road to the sale your way. It cannot be forced. If it is forced due to lack of customization or lack of technology, then usage will plummet, I guarantee it, because it's forced. So keep that in mind. Customizable or simplicity does not equal adoption. Flexibility allows for customization, adaptation, and growth. So is growth not the reason we're doing all of this every day, that we buy a software piece in the first place is to grow our business? I mean, no one running a business says their goal is to just keep their head above water. Nobody that I've talked to. So flexibility is important in software as it is in negotiations. If you're negotiating a deal with a customer and they won't budge at all, that's going to be a pretty tough sell. So you got to have that flexibility to make it make sense for you and your staff and your culture. Mistake number 4, adapting your process to your software. In fact, you should do the exact opposite. Your software should adapt to your process. So keep that in mind as you look at different solutions, and find one that dovetails into your to you and to your culture the best, so that there will be the least amount of forced change, therefore getting a better return on investment, better usage, and better compliance. So with that, we'll get rolling now. We went through a few of the mistakes with the ultimate guide to purchasing the right software. So step 1, this is so crucial. Form a committee. So often I see dealers will task an internet director, or they'll task a general manager or somebody in the dealership to go out and find the best tools, find the best things, narrow it down all on their own, and then they bring the price to the GM or the dealer principal, and then they call and work the price. So that seems to be the majority of the process that I see today. So why a committee? Well, number 1 is to engage your staff. I mean, start thinking about who should be a part of the committee. Who are the key players in the dealership? So the other part is why a committee is weighing on options. Give members a chance to discuss what's important to them specifically and their department, right? Because you don't know what they know about their department. You've got to tap that well to make sure that we make the right decision for the dealership, not just the person. Create a sense of ownership. In order for anyone to get behind anything, they need to own at least part of the idea. So this is extremely crucial to why you want to be encompassing here when you think about who should be on this committee. And then also gain buy-in to ensure the usage of the tool and to ultimately improve your culture, right? Because if we're providing customers with a better experience via software, the culture comes up right along with it. Collaboration is definitely key. Not collaborating and getting everyone's input will have a negative outcome. I guarantee it. I see it all the time. So make sure that you keep that word collaboration at the front of mind when you're thinking about how are we going to move on this next step of purchasing software. No buy-in always equals poor adoption, which always equals lower ROI, which is the exact opposite of why you purchase any software piece ever. So make sure that you keep those things top of mind when you're moving through that as well. So who should be on the committee? I get asked this one a lot, right? So who should we staff this one up? Now this is a great starting spot. Now your dealership may be different, but committee members, usually somebody representing from the new car department, the used car department, almost always an internet manager. They understand the tools most of the time the best. General manager for sure, sales, parts representation, service representation, and probably a controller as well. One tip, don't forget about the salespeople. Okay, I see a lot of committees that I go meet with or that I've talked to that don't have any salespeople on it, and that's probably the heaviest user of the system. So make sure that you get a few, and I would recommend tenured, consistent salespeople that have been there a while that you can count on to give a good quality opinion of whatever piece of software that you're looking at, and getting that kind of ground level support from the sales staff is extremely important. A lot of people miss that one, so make sure you get the salespeople in there as well. So you want to let everybody have a voice. So how are a couple of ways that you can go about that? Number one, I've seen a few dealerships do a comment box to where they'll have somebody come in and present, and they can go in and fill out, what they thought, likes, dislikes about the solution. This one is really popular with the digital age, and that's sending out like a Survey Monkey or something like that to the staff to say, what are our potential shortcomings with the tool that we have now? What do we want to do in the future with the current solution we're looking at, and kind of get that overall 10,000-foot view buy-in. And then some people do it with an all-hands meeting. Just get all the staff together and going around the room and getting everybody feeling like they're part of the decision. Really important steps to take when you're looking to purchase software. Step 2, know your end game, okay? Begin with the end in mind. Very, very crucial. What will happen after I buy, right? A couple of questions you want to ask yourself. Well, I mean, will they support me? How will they support me? What level of support is standard? And is there another level of support that I have to pay for? Right? Questions you need to be asking. Is there someone tied to my account to ensure my success? It's responsible for me. Is that a part of this package, right? As a dealer, how can we ensure the success of the solution? How can we make sure that the staff uses it? Hold weekly or monthly meetings to discuss software solutions and their level of effectiveness. I'm a big fan of this, right? So make sure that no matter what software solution sets you're on now, have a monthly meeting to go through the level of effectiveness of those tools and do a progress report, a State of the Union. You've got to constantly measure, right? Are we behind the times? Are we ahead of the times? Is this costing us time or saving us time? And ask those questions, but do it monthly. Some dealerships I know do it weekly. That may be a little bit too much, but monthly for sure. And just gauge the effectiveness of the tools that you're paying for every month. It's crucial to success. And then what's the vendor's responsibility? But do they update often, right? To keep me on the cutting edge. Is the platform stable and reliable? What are the vendor's plans for the future? Looking at it with a wide lens, where is this vendor going? Who do they integrate with? They're all great questions to ask when looking at a piece of software. So what you'll want to identify is, we have it broken down into 2 different states, right? So first being current. So usage. Is that an issue now? Do you have a problem getting people to use the tool now? Does it just sit there? Are we just reskinning a people problem? You need to ask those questions, because in all reality, you may have to change some staff around and give it some time to make sure that whatever you're doing when you purchase software, however it may lay out, is going to work, right? Because there's nothing worse than paying a bill for something that just sits there every month, right? Vendor shortcomings. Write down a list of all the things you wish your current solution did, and keep that handy, right? We're going to use that later in the process. And then lastly, holes in the process. Reflect on your current road to the sale. I mean, is it what you want? I mean, what needs to be changed, right? So those are great questions to ask as well. So in the meantime, we're going to think about future state, right? So software requirements. Do we need to update our computers? Or do we need to upgrade the bandwidth on our internet connection? What other requirements does the vendor have? Browser requirements. Do they work with a certain kind of operating system or OS, right? Great questions to ask in the pre-sale process. Realistic expectations for processes. I mean, dreaming is great, right? You can dream up something that sounds just amazing. But not every vendor can accommodate what you dream up, right? So you got to find the vendor that gets the closest and dig deep, right, to make sure that it will do what you guys need it to do. And then lastly, budget. What does our budget look like now? Is budget or ROI driving this decision? Meaning, am I just worried about getting a piece of software that's not crazy priced but lowers my ROI potential? I mean, I got to say, why are you purchasing it in the first place, right? I mean, you're purchasing it for compliance and ROI. So ROI potential to me is something that should be job one when it comes to choosing a piece of software, right? How much do we expect to increase it for a new solution? All good questions to ask. Don't make a snap decision. Do you have a software or people problem? Which one is it? You may need to reevaluate the staff, like I mentioned before bringing on a new solution. And if they don't use the current solution or use it to the best of their ability, then we may need to shift personnel first, right? Could other vendors have the same shortcomings? Once you identify the shortcomings in your current solution, make sure that you run those by all prospective vendors. Nothing worse than going live on a new solution that doesn't accomplish the things that made you pull your hair out with the last one, right? So definitely make sure you ask those questions. Know your dealership. Master your unique selling position. So unique selling proposition, what's that mean? What separates you from your competition, basically? What makes a customer come to your store? Is it great prices? Is it concierge service? Is it your location? I mean, are you right next to the Ford assembly plant? Then maybe we need to change our message, right, to cater to that clientele. You want to identify at least 2 or 3 of these and keep them top of mind as you go throughout the software buying process. Look for a tool that can help complement these things and somebody that can catapult those 2 or 3 differences, or USPs as we call them, to show that you are different than the competition, and here's the reason you would come to this store. Same kind of thing, conveying the USPs to the customer. What solution helps in that regard the most? What is the best way to make sure people notice these differences you have and you work so hard to create, right? Does the solution help that or make it more difficult? Become more relevant. It's no mystery that today's customer demands relevancy. If a customer gets an irrelevant offer, it does more harm than a relevant offer does good. That is a guarantee. I got one in the mail a week or 2 ago that was $100 higher for me to come in and buy another F-150. And it did nothing but demotivate me to go buy another F-150. I don't want my payment to go up $100, right? So we have to make sure we find a solution or a program that's going to help provide relevancy to our customer base to make them feel special enough to pick up the phone or get in the car and come into the dealership. Find an efficient automated tool. Whenever in doubt, please buy automation. People will forget. Balls will be dropped. There will be mistakes. A piece of software will help minimize these things via automation. Okay, so whenever in doubt, please look at the level of automation in the tool versus the level of manual entry into the tool, and always side with automation if you're on the fence. Trust me, you'll thank me later. Relevant, consistent customer experience. Think of this from end to end when you think about knowing your dealership. In your mind, become the customer and work through each step of the sale in your dealership, visualizing yourself in this role as the customer. This will help you tremendously in identifying the small things that can sometimes turn into really big things if it gets out of hand or becomes repetitive, right? So I always say, look at it with a fresh set of eyes. What eyes? The customer's eyes when you look at your process. Step 3, set your budget. One thing you want to think about when going into this process is hidden costs, right? So some of them are hidden, some of them are out there, but not, they're not in lights, let's say. So integration fees, big one. Do they charge me to integrate with the DMS? Do they charge me to integrate with my third party? Do they charge me to integrate with my call tracking provider? Do they charge me to integrate with the book out valuations that I'm used to using? All great questions to make sure that you've got dialed in before moving on any piece of software. Another one to keep in mind is overages. Is that, how much extra is it per minute if I go over on my call tracking allotment? How much extra is it to go if I go over on my texting allotment? What about artwork or creative design time for the website, right? And making sure that you vet those tremendously so that you know exactly what you're getting into when you roll into this. A lot of times I see vendors that sign up with someone and then 6 months later they look at their bill and there's all these overages and upcharges and things that you just weren't expecting, and that's something that you really got to keep an eye on and try to get ahead of in the pre-sale process instead of finding out post-sale. The other one, per user. A lot of systems out there charge a per user fee. So what's that look like if I grow my business and I've got to get more users on? Is there an upcharge for that? All great questions to ask. 65% of organizations do not have a predefined budget when selecting software. That's crazy to me, right? So sit down and think about, what do we want to spend? What do we spend now? How is that working? What do we want to look like going forward? Great questions to ask. This one is important. Don't base your budget on your current spend. I see a lot of dealers doing this. If the current solution it doesn't work, or it's just full of holes and nobody's using it, it's hard to believe that you'll find a better solution for the same price. Vendors know where they excel, and they know how big the delta is between them and their competitors. So you truly do get what you pay for in this space, right? So if you spend the time and you ask the right questions, you will understand this to a T. Budgeting resources. So where can I look to help me find what my budget should be based off of the market? So a couple different places here. So structured and unstructured. First, being consultants. There are many good consultants out there in today's market that have in-depth experience with all the different choices available to dealers today. They can help in a lot of areas, including budgeting and pricing. Sister dealers, great place to get knowledge. If you have a sister store that has been on or is on a solution that we're looking at, what's the price point for their products? I mean, can we go to the store and see it in action, take a look at the bills, see exactly what they have, how the line items are broken out? Great place to go. 20 groups, allowing dealers to discuss their findings from the different solutions and vendors available today. Great info can come from these meetings. Forums, such as driving sales and dealer refresh. There's tons of data on these sites. I mean, take a look around and see what the buzz is in the industry. Current dealers with past experience, certain solutions. There's going to be a lot of data on there, dealers talking about different vendors. So go take a look at all that. Keep in mind when you set your budget or you look at your sister store's bill that vendors have a lot of different configurations and add-on products that can sometimes skew the pricing discussion. So it's not as easy as just saying, I bought an Explorer. Did you buy a base Explorer or a Platinum Explorer? So to put it into different terms there, that may help you realize what I'm talking about. But make sure that you get granular on that and to see exactly which products they have when comparing those things between a sister store or maybe just somebody you know or somebody you dealer trade with or a buddy at another store, something like that. Step 4, survey the landscape. Ask around other dealers, current employees, not more of a budgeting stuff, but also ask, who are you using? Do you like them? What's going on with that? Are they updating? Are they staying on the cutting edge? Who's reputable? Look for stories, right, and case studies about start to finish on how this went, from current or past users too. Same thing. Consult online forums. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of great data on these sites, but proceed with caution. And keep your view at 10,000 feet when you do this. Every vendor has customers that love them, and every vendor has customers that hate them. So keep that in mind as you look through this data. And like I said, take it with a grain of salt. Review the vendor websites. I don't think there's enough time spent doing this. I mean, I recommend that everyone just spend some time on the vendor site and see how they present themselves, their go-to-market strategy, their competitive differences. And you can learn a lot and see quite a bit of contrast between the competitors if you just spend a little time browsing the site and seeing, how they put it out there for you. So review vendor websites. Great step. Narrow down results based on documented criteria. I mean, after you've done your research, you want to specify the reputable contenders that you found. You may need to meet with the committee again here just to make sure that this selection process or narrowing is valid for all members, okay? So keep that in mind too. You don't want to start lopping people out that you don't like until you've gotten buy-in back from the committee. So we may need another committee meeting at this point in the game. Step 5, get a demo or an online overview. Reach out to the vendors, okay? So contact and make a plan to set up online overviews or in-store presentations. So most vendors will accommodate you either way. A bit of advice on this particular step, though, is to schedule your demos close together if at all possible. It doesn't mean like on the app for 5 hours. That doesn't mean that. But what I see is, or I say this because I speak to dealers who by the time they get through all of the demos, they forget what the first vendor offered or any key differences that they had that they've been doing this. So yeah, taking great notes will help that. Even recording the demo will go a long way once it gets to decision time. So most vendors can do that too, by the way. So if you just ask them, they can record the demo and send it to you. Just all you got to do is ask, right? So, or you can record it yourself if you have the means to do that. Also, it is very realistic to think that you may need to do 2 or even 3 demos with just the same vendor to really figure out, is it a yes or is it a no or is it a next step? As you navigate these, you'll become more educated on the different products available to you, and new questions will come about because of this, because you've been educated on the solutions out there. So take great notes, review your notes before each presentation. When you do that, you'll find that those new questions just pop right up. During the presentation or during the demo, look for things you want. Have your data ready and be prepared to dig deep to get your yes or to get your no or to get your down the road or the vaporware stuff. Remember your documented criteria. I mean, you compiled all this, you documented it, and you want to turn some of that on at this point to make sure that you go into this decision with the core values that the committee kind of put forth at the beginning, and those that you're trying to put in place. Don't get caught up by bells and whistles. I see this quite a bit. Bells and whistles can be very accommodating, and some of them really do get used, and some of them grow. CRM used to be a bell and whistle. Right now, look at it. Right, some are great, but don't make that the reason you buy a piece of software. If they have one piece that you can't live without, you got to look at all the other pieces that you're missing from the competitive landscape. So keep that in mind. Don't let it become the main course. Just keep them as a side dish. Ask specific questions. All the work your team did about what we want to be as a dealership, the shortcomings in your current process, the holes in the current solution, the customer experience that you want to put forth, it all comes into play here. So be specific and ask direct questions. And most importantly, have the vendor explain the no and have the vendor explain the yes. Because what you'll find sometimes is, can you do this, Mr. Vendor? Vendor says yes. However, it may be 8 clicks with that vendor and 2 clicks with another vendor to accomplish that goal, but you won't know until you go live if you don't ask those questions. So a simple no or a simple yes just doesn't always cut it. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask. Explain that no. Explain that yes for me. Remember, don't ask what it can do. Ask what can it do for my dealership. Everyone knows features and benefits, right? Make sure you ask questions like, how does that benefit the dealership? How would I use that? How do current dealers that you have on your solution use that now? What does that do for my customer? All good places to start. Questions to ask. Will this vendor disappear after the sale? What happens post-sale? What's the solution? What's that landscape look like? Another great one, is this a scalable solution that can grow with my business? Meaning, are they on the cutting edge from the technology standpoint, from the hardware standpoint, from the speed standpoint? Ask those questions. What are the contractual obligations? Is this dealer looking at a vendor that's month to month, or are they looking to sign a 12-month or a 24-month agreement and essentially lock themselves into that technology for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years even sometimes? So a big implication on the dealership. So make sure you ask, what's the terms and conditions of this agreement, and is it month to month or is it a term? Will the software integrate with existing systems? Meaning, okay, so if we're looking at this one piece of software, does that integrate with the software that we currently have? Yes. Okay, great. No. Okay, well, maybe now we got to look at changing that other piece of software if our goal is integration. So keep that in mind. The software for automotive sets in kind of silos in different spaces, but connecting those is very, very important to save time in the deal. Because if there's anything I learned in retail when I spent all that time at the car lot was time kills deals. Nothing more kills a deal more than time spent here, time spent there. So we want to be efficient and we want as much integration as possible in today's systems. How easy is it to set up and train users? Do they have a recurring training model now? What does that look like? How do I get my new salespeople that start trained on the tool? Or how do I get my used car manager that starts trained on the tool? So you need to really dig deep on how they implement it, and then how they support and train, specifically train on it as you have new people come into the store, and then also refreshers. You know, from if the training when you launched was a year ago, I mean, you're probably missing out on some of those values that were conveyed in the initial launch training. So make sure you ask those questions too. And then how are system updates managed? Do they do them at all? Is it server-based and they haven't had an update in 8 years? That's a good one to ask. Is it web-based? How often do you guys update? Because what you're really looking for is to make sure that you don't end up in 2 years or a year with an antiquated solution that was the same as the day you bought it. No, the customer's not the same. Why should your software be the same, right? So make sure you ask about updates and get your answers on that. Step 6, evaluate. Identify your top 3 systems. And it could be 2, it can be 4, but you're going to want to try to narrow it down. And remember your criteria sheet. You know, what is the best solution for not me as an individual, that's part of it, but what is the best solution for the culture and for the staff? And what is everybody's feeling around this particular solution or these final 2 or final 3 that we're looking at? Remember your criteria sheet on price versus budget. Go back and pull that budget that you had worked up on what you think you should spend based off of all your findings and compare that to the price that you got laying in front of you. Remember that the contractual obligations are a big part of this. They're often overlooked. We do deals with some dealers here, and they didn't even know they were in a contract with the other vendor. They'd already purchased. So, I mean, you got to make sure you know that stuff. It's definitely impactful on the dealership. So, and support offered after the sale, right? Because you wouldn't buy a car without insurance. I wouldn't advise you to buy a CRM without one, or an inventory piece without one, or a website without one. So make sure that they offer support after the sale to guarantee that you're going to get the most potential out of this particular solution. Step 7, make a decision. Call the ball, right? Compile your notes, your sales material, and your pricing, and get all of that together. And what you're going to want to do is get back again with the committee and consult the committee. And this is what we found. These are the notes from the demos. This is what everybody said before. How has that changed? Schedule time for this. Block out at least an hour or 2. Bring in lunch. Whatever you've got to do to get engagement in this meeting. Roll through all the data, let everyone have a chance to speak and voice their opinion. Gain buy-in and make decisions. Go around the room and get everyone's buy-in on what the decision will be, or let them present their counter-argument. Some people vote at this stage. You can definitely do that. It's very democratic. Others, the dealer principal or the general manager will decide after kind of listening to everyone's opinion. That happens quite a bit too. So those are both good methods to look at. It's just whatever you think works best for your culture. And there may be something that's not one of those 2 that works even better, so I'll leave that open. But remember that make everyone feel like they're part of this decision. This is crucial, this meeting, okay? When you finally do it and you finally make your decision, make sure everyone feels like they're a part of the decision. It's so crucial to the final step. This will echo. It will, I know, and I know that for sure. So it will echo for years to come when this meeting goes down. So make sure you get everybody feeling good and great about the decision that's about to be made. And remember, all software, 100% of it, is useless without users, okay? So it's the only way that this works is the human element. So make sure your human element's correct and everything looks good with the culture, and then implement a piece of software and know and feel good that you made the right decision that'll get used. So to recap, the 7 steps. Number 1, form a committee. Get everybody involved in the dealership that's going to have a piece of this in their department or some way going to be affected by it, so that they all have a voice. Know your end game. Begin with the end in mind. Back into what you want. make a list of what you want your dealership to look like, and then go find solutions that cater to that or dovetail into that. Don't just go in blind hoping that the vendor is going to save your life. You're the one that has to sell cars, not us, right? Set your budget. Get data from numerous points and spend some time looking at what this should be, and set a budget and try to stick to it. Survey the landscape. See what's out there. See who's the reputable vendors in your market. See who accomplishes the most of your short list from the know your end game stage, right? So, and start there, and then ultimately get a demo from those short list of people that you find or vendors that you find. Evaluate everything that you found in the online overviews, and then ultimately make a decision and make one that you absolutely feel good about. Look, nobody buying software is 100% win ratio on picking the right one. All you can do is take the steps necessary to know that you did everything in your power to find the right piece to encompass the members of the committee, to get the culture aspect of it. And if you check all those boxes, then you'll feel good about your decision no matter what the outcome is, okay? So with that, we'll turn it over for questions. And before I do that to Nick, I just want to say thanks to everybody for taking the time out to listen in and hear my thoughts about purchasing software. So Nick, with that, I'll send it back over to you.
Excellent presentation, Chase. A lot of great strategy recommendations and other points to consider when going through this process. And just as a reminder that we are recording today's webinar session, so you'll be able to, in your inbox here in the coming days, you'll have a message containing a link to the recording of this webinar, so you can review some of the great information that Chase has shared and be able to share that link with other folks at your store, so you can discuss it within the dealership on how to approach this process and what might work best for you. And if you have any questions for Chase, again, please use the questions box on the GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll get to as many questions as we can during our time here. But if we don't happen to get to your question, don't be alarmed. We'll be able to forward that directly via email to Chase and the team at VinSolutions, and they'll be able to respond back to you directly after our session today. So Chase, just to get a conversation started again, I guess it's to a degree it's a point that's referenced during your great presentation, is just when does a dealership know that it's the right time to start looking for a new software, or how often should they be evaluating their software to consider if a change is merited?
So the short answer is daily. Every minute you should be evaluating your software. And if you find as you're working through it, whatever it is, and you find I wish it did this, or wouldn't it be great if it did that, or why doesn't it do this, then you need to make a note of it. But I still recommend that at least once a month you should meet with the key players from the departments or the users of that particular software piece and discuss those things. And be mindful at all times about the competitors out there. And because what you want to do as a dealership, and the reason you buy all these software solutions, is to put your best foot forward to the customer. So how can we ensure that we're going to do that month in, month out if we don't constantly measure and evaluate our solution versus the market, so that we may provide the best customer experience in our city or in our competitive landscape as far as dealerships go. So at least once a month, maybe to start once a quarter, but nothing more than that. And you should be evaluating and taking notes daily, because once you finally get to the meeting, sometimes it's hard to remember the little bitty things that you identified as the month went on that you would want to report on when you get into that meeting. So at least once a month is what I would say.
Excellent, excellent. A good rule of thumb to go by. Again, another part of your presentation, Chase, triggered a couple of questions. One point in particular is how you made reference to a software's bells and whistles. A dealer is wondering what might fall under the categories of bells and whistles. What should a dealer consider when that part of the software is under consideration?
Well, I mean, bells and whistles is a broad term, but what you want to keep in mind is things that are widgets that are add-ons to current core solutions. And is that something that's going to be developed? Is a huge thing about that. I mean, you may see the first iteration of it when you look at it in a demo or an online overview, but is it really going to turn into what it should be based off it not being a core solution for that particular vendor? So you want to keep that in mind. And does your vendor have something that emulates it already, but it's just part of the standard offering? So that's the best way I could probably describe that. Is it going to get the development time, the production time to keep it on the cutting edge, as it may be, it appears when you look at it in an online overview?
Very good, very good. And if you have questions for Chase Abbott here with VinSolutions, please use the questions box on the GoToWebinar control panel. Another dealer is inquiring here. Certainly, perhaps one of the most important parts of the entire decision-making process to consider is the cost. Just how much of a dealership budget should be dedicated to software that they are using? What kind of range should they expect to pay for a software solution? Just kind of, what would you say are some thoughts there to prepare to not have sticker shock, so to speak?
Right. Well, I would say that software can be $20 a month, some of it, all the way up to I see software vendors charging thousands and thousands of dollars a month. So I guess it plays back into the fact that you're going to have to look and see at each solution what the price is and what you feel that you can do with the tool. There's no blanket answer for that. It's like saying what's a car cost. Well, there's entry level and then there's Ferrari F430s, right? So I mean, there's a big range. But what you got to focus on is that you need to take the time to look at the competitors out there and draw your own line in the sand about how much you think we should spend based off of this. But what I would say to everyone, keep in mind the reason you buy this tool is to get some kind of ROI, and sometimes that's hard to measure. But what you have to look at is what is the best solution that helps me provide the best customer experience, whether that's a low price or a short time to deliver or a fast lane in the service drive, because ultimately nobody's going to make any profit unless there's a ton of customers coming into the store. So the results that you need to look at need to revolve around that customer and see which one's going to provide the best experience. As far as pricing goes, you'll find that out, but it depends on which particular pieces of the solution you're looking at and what you think that you can, ROI as much as possible.
Excellent recommendations, Chase. And along the same lines, just along with cost, what parts of software or what departments within the dealership can an enhanced software solution kind of get the most mileage, can have the most impact?
Well, I mean, it really, it depends. I mean, every piece of software, in my opinion, caters to some area of the dealership, right? Unless maybe DMS, which that kind of encompasses everything. But, whether it's a service piece for, doing ROs on iPads and kind of presenting the customer with some cutting-edge technology and making it faster and not having to handwrite stuff, and as the customer sits there and watches the service writer, put chicken scratches on paper and they worry about the security of their data. So, each individual department has specialties or specialist software pieces out there. So what I would do, and some don't, some try to encompass, you know, the whole front end of the dealership, if you will, or the whole back end of the dealership. So what you want to do is look at, you know, if I go with the top of the line, in my opinion, you know, service piece, for instance, am I losing anything by not having integration between the other departments and that piece of software, whatever that is? So integration, if you went, like I said earlier, if you went to NADA, there's a ton of info. If there was a word for the buzzword, it used to be big data, now I think it's integration. So, you know, making sure that you don't have to enter a customer's information 4 or 5 times, and having everything be fluid, because the customer sees that. I mean, they see you write their name 4 times, and they wonder, what kind of, you know, friction fires are you guys doing to heat the building, right? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So you want to reflect the cutting edge technology that you use into your process and into the customer experience, so that they feel secure about buying from you and sending their friends and their family, and also doing their service, you know, getting service retention through them as well, by putting the best foot forward. The software just helps you do that. The smiles are up to the dealer.
Excellent, excellent. This is Chase Abbott. He's the Senior Director at VinSolutions, and going over our webinar today, the ultimate playbook to purchasing the right software. And during your presentation, Chase, again, you made great points about the importance of the committee within the dealership to make the decision and go through the evaluation process. If you could you recap again who are the important members of that committee, and eventually who would you suggest might be the best person to serve as the software administrator from that committee? So if you could go through a recap of that portion of the playbook.
Yeah, so what I would recommend on who should be on the committee, and this is different for every dealership, but the ones I see the most is somebody from the new car department, or the new car manager a lot of times, used car manager a lot of times, definitely the GM, possibly the dealer principal, depending on how involved they are with the business, internet manager, internet director, whatever you have at your store, somebody from service, typically the service manager, parts manager, and then sometimes a controller. Definitely if you're buying DMS, the controller is always present in those. So you'll want to make sure those people are on it. And then, like I mentioned before, the salespeople are tremendous places to go to get information that you're not going to think about as a manager. They'll give you way different POVs, and they'll be refreshing to you, and you say, wow, I'm glad I asked those questions. As far as, you know, who the leader should be, you know, that's up for negotiation. But in my opinion, I think the general manager should be the leader of it. What I see, though, oftentimes is not enough engagement from that position, and it really is a detriment to the store, because it's so impactful for the solution, the software solutions that we're looking at, for the general manager to be involved, because ultimately he's responsible or she's responsible for if they're in the red or the black at the end of the month. So general manager would be my recommendation, but I often see the internet director, BDC director, internet manager, what have you, leading the committee, and mainly that's because they understand the software solutions the best, and I get that too. So I would say it's one or the other, but like I said, there's no, you know, golden rule. I mean, it's going to be different for your dealership possibly, so keep that in mind.
Excellent points to consider. That's Chase Abbott, the Senior Director at VinSolutions. His contact information is available there on your screen. Be able to, if you think of something after our session here, Chase is certainly open to have engaging in more dialogue after our webinar here. If have more questions or think of other topics to help make the best decision for your store. Closing moments here, Chase. Another question that's come in is perhaps maybe the most difficult one to answer is evaluating that ROI. The point that you emphasized so nicely throughout the presentation. Just what have been some ways that stores have computed that ROI? What's elements, be it cost savings or increased sales or what have you? What have been some ways that stores have measured their ROI to determine whether they've made a good software decision?
Well, I mean, it's so hard to get a black and white reading on the ROI from just about any piece of software out there available today. It's not like a lead provider. You know, when I used to buy leads when I ran internet, it was very easy to see whether or not this lead provider was making me money. I know how much I paid for the lead, I know how many leads I bought, and I know how many deals I did because of those leads, and I know the gross profit. So I could tell really easily. But with a piece of software, it's not like that, because you really have to measure your ROI, and you can look at how many cars we were selling before versus now. That's a good, decent way to look at it, but it's not encompassing. What you need to do is think about it, like I said, mentioned earlier just briefly, but think about it in terms of the customer and what kind of experience that we're putting forth and how much time is this tool or piece of software saving us, because that translates directly to the customer experience in which that's where you determine whether you're successful or not as a dealership, right? So I would say it's hard to measure, and really the answer is you can't with a piece of software, not to a T, but you can when you look at it and you look at how the day flows and how happy is my staff. Are they complaining about typing in, you know, the customer's address 16 times to complete a deal? Well, that's all going to roll downhill, and the bottom of the hill is the customer. And you've got to remember that as our job as managers in the dealership is to provide the best, most engaging customer experience we can, while having the culture drive that customer experience in which you've laid out to the staff. So it's really hard to measure, but you can measure it if you know what I'm saying.
Excellent, Chase. Excellent recommendations. That's Chase Abbott, the Senior Director from VinSolutions. Our webinar here today, the ultimate playbook to purchasing the right software. And just as one last reminder that we are recording today's session, so keep watch of a message arriving in your inbox here soon with a link to the recording, so you can review the great strategy suggestions that Chase has shared and be able to push it around your dealership to the general manager, the internet director, the controller, all of the individuals that Chase had mentioned here. And just finally, in the last couple of minutes that we have here, Chase, the folks, once they have this playbook in their hands, what would you suggest are the next steps to take next? What can dealerships do to leverage the recommendations that you've shared to the best way possible?
Well, I would just say that, you know, they need to, the biggest thing is they need to gain or earn or uncover the desire of the dealership staff and personnel that are going to be part of this decision. They need to be extremely good in selling that passion and getting everybody up to speed with them on that same level of passion, so that you get engagement out of this, because we want to find a tool that's going to work for everybody in a lot of instances, because so many pieces of software touch so many departments. It's really the first place I would start is gathering the data on how committed we are as a staff to doing this, right? Whether it's DMS or CRM or inventory, whatever it is, right? And think of the players involved in that decision, and then immediately after that, think of their level of engagement and their level of passion around their departments. And this is something that you can just do internally or work with the GM, or if you're the GM, work with the DP or different department heads, whatever it may be. But you've got to realize the first step is, are we ready to do this, right? I mean, we have the playbook. We know how to run the plays, right? But if we don't have the right players on the field, then we may have to do some work in free agency to get the right people on the field, and then we'll go play the game. So you've got to look at it like that, I think, gauging the level of desire and passion around this decision with the current staff that you have in place.
Great way to close it out, Chase. Excellent job. He's Chase Abbott, the Senior Director at VinSolutions. So, Chase, thank you so much for sharing the great software wisdom here, and no doubt a strategy and a playbook that dealers can leverage to improve their operations. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate it. And thanks, everybody, again for joining in.
Well, thank you again. And for Chase Abbott, I'm Nick Sulovich from Subprime Auto Finance News and Buy Here, Pay Here Report. Thank you so much for joining us.